my family, where they were officers in the American Revolution. They've been a part of the DAR and CAR and the Society of Cincinnati, and going all the way up through. My great-grandfather was Secretary of War under Harding and Coolidge, and senators. His son was Secretary of Commerce under Eisenhower, and just like built up America, to be a bastion of freedom. But unfortunately, we've lost our way. We've been infiltrated, and now all 10 planks of communism are law in the United States. I, as well as my ancestors, are pissed off.
Hello, and welcome to episode 39 of the Liberland Show. I'm your host, Adam J. Carswell. Today we are joined by Joby Weeks. Joby is a global ambassador for Liberland, and also, I should say, a founding father. Yes, I believe this is probably one of the first, if not the first, founding fathers we've ever had here on the Liberland Show. So, Joby, thank you for taking the time out of your day to join us. Thank you for coming on the show. And do you have any opening remarks for our listeners?
Sure, Adam. Glad to be a part of the show. I love Liberland, and I love what you're doing to spread the word of liberty.
All right. Well, speaking of liberty, let's cut straight to it, and Liberland too, I should say. How did how did this all start for you? How did your association with Liberland begin?
Well, I always thought it would be cool to start a country, and I was sitting in front of, in fact, there was an article done about me when I started my business, and it went global, and I started bouncing around the world. We set up offices in Tokyo and Sydney and London and Korea, Taiwan, Hong Kong, South Africa. So it took us all over the world, and we took the company public and made lots of money. And I read the article just recently. It was written about 15, almost 20 years ago. And there was a line in there that said, I'd love to start a country one day. And so here we are 20 years later, and we're involved with Liberland. How I met Vit, the president of Liberland, was at a conference in Mexico called Anarcho-Poco. And what had happened with me was I had just met another guy named Prince Renato, who was on TV on CNN or one of these news stories that, they were arguing about his country being the smallest country in the world. They've got the Vatican that's within Italy. That's technically the smallest. But, of course, there's the Sovereign Order of the Knights of Malta, and they were arguing that theirs is smaller than the Vatican. And then, of course, the Knights Templar, which has this island off of Madeira in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, who was also saying, well, no, we're the smallest country in the world, the smallest sovereign order, if you will, the Knights Templar. And they've got this old fortress from the 1400s. And I'm watching this TV show, the Guinness Book of World Records is out there. And I'm thinking to myself, man, I've never even heard of Madeira. So I get on Google Maps and find Madeira. I yell over to my wife, Stephanie, go find us a boat. Let's go to Madeira. So we found a ship and we sailed there and got to the island. And I got off and walked up to the fortress steps. I knocked on the door, and Prince Renato opened the door, and I'm all, Prince Renato, it is I, Joby from America. I've come to visit you. And, I was really excited. He's like, well, come on in, my humble servant. So I go in, and he's like, I'm like, well, I'll knit you gold and silver coins and make you stamps, and we'll do passports. This is going to be so fun. And so by the end of the night, after a nice dinner and a couple bottles of wine, he's named me the Minister of Finance. And so I thought that was awesome. And I went back to America with this ID, from this Knights Templar island, this old fortress. And long and the short, I told my Burning Man friends about it. And they were, the guys in my camp, it's a 747 camp. They started Twitter and Snapchat and a couple early Facebook guys and Instagram, investors, et cetera. So they're loaded with cash. And I'm telling these guys, well, after you have all the money in the world, wouldn't it be cool to start a country? And so they all love the idea. And so I was like, well, let's go back to Madeira, and we'll talk to Prince Renato. I'll make you guys all ministers and stuff. So I went back with about 20 people and introduced them to Prince Renato. I was like, I want to name Paul Kirchhoff. I'll name him the Minister of Order and Chaos. And I'll name everybody else. So we had a big party that night, and Prince Renato decided to name me the prime minister of this little country. It's called Pontina. And he's like, well, if you're going to name all your friends ministers, then you could be the prime minister. So I thought that was hilarious, and we got our IDs and all that kind of stuff. So I showed up to Anarcho-Poco as the prime minister, and there's Vit, the president of Liberland, and I'm the prime minister, and we had this delegation. And then what happened was Vit invited me, of course, to come down and visit him in Liberland, and I invited him to do the same with us. And Liberland had just started like a month before. It was a brand new idea. Liberland, for those who don't know, it's Yugoslavia broke up and spun out Albania and Macedonia and Kosovo and Bosnia and Serbia and Croatia and all these countries spun out of Yugoslavia, and this one little island in the middle of the Danube River was never claimed by anybody. And the Danube is a really big river. It goes all the way up to Budapest and Prague and Vienna, and it's technically international waters. And so this island's in the middle of it. And so Vit decided, hey, he's going to claim that and call it Liberland. So I thought the story was great. And I had recently saved the Serbian national climber's life on top of Mount McKinley, Denali in Alaska. I've been climbing the 7 summits, and I was up there. And anyways, he got stuck in a storm and needed to be rescued and stayed in my tent for a couple of days. We became friends. We summited the mountain together. And long and the short, he invited me to come back to Serbia to be his best man in his wedding, his kum. And I was like, no, pick your friends in the army and stuff. He's like, those are all my brothers. I can't pick favorites. You're the one that saved my life. You need to come. So wow. I thought, I could kill 2 birds with 1 stone. I could go to Serbia, to Belgrade and go be the best man, be the kum in this wedding, and get, have these guys try to drink me under the table with a drink called rakia. And then I'll be able to hang out with Vit and go hit Liberland. So that's what we did. We had this huge wedding. It was like a 3-day wedding and stuff. And then after that, there was this big festival, and Liberland had a big presence. I was there, waving the flag and everything. And then we took the boats out and went out. And that's when Vit was like, hey, we really want to run with this and make it a reality. And so I thought, Vit is much more motivated in making this a success. And so I decided to really get behind what Vit is doing because, Prince Renato is pretty motivated as well. But I see Vit at all these conferences, and he's much more up on the blockchain and speaks way better English, etc. So I decided to really just help any little country out there to get its sovereignty. I help a lot of people. I help a lot of the Native Americans here. There's a bunch of reservations and sovereign nations within the United States that I've been helping out, and other areas, hemp in the CBD space, and of course, blockchain, cryptocurrency, all that stuff. So that's kind of the story of how I met Vit for the first time, and it was great. We've been friends ever since.
And I'm curious about Prince Renato, because I know you mentioned it, but I might have missed it. Where exactly was that country again?
So it's off the island of Madeira. Feng Chau is the capital of Madeira. It's like Hawaii. It's a beautiful island in the middle of the Atlantic, just southwest or southeast of the Azores and northwest of the Canary Islands, but really in the middle of nowhere. And if you Google my name, Joby Weeks, and then type up Bitcoin and then type up Atlantis, I was telling Prince Renato, let's change the name from, the Pontina, Pointina, Pontina. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, instead of calling it the Point or Pontina, let's call it Atlantis, because it's in the middle of the Atlantic, and there's already all this branding going down for Atlantis, the resorts, and everybody's heard of Atlantis, disappeared and stuff. And so we could rebuild Atlantis and have it be a sovereign country out there. And so he kind of liked it, but he never went along with actually changing it. I had some passports drawn up with the Atlantis logo on the front of the passport and stuff like that. But then I got sidetracked with Liberland, and I thought, well, maybe I could just throw a bunch of money at Liberland, and then Vit could do all the work and make it all happen with his team instead of me having to do everything, because I need to take on another project myself. I'm pretty busy doing about 19 other things. So yeah, basically that's what happened with that. You can just Google Joby Weeks Bitcoin Atlantis, and you can.
I'm reading it. I'm reading it right now.
Yeah, so we officially declared Bitcoin our official currency, which made us the first country in the world to formally declare Bitcoin as the official currency of the realm.
That's awesome. I was not expecting to learn that today, and I'm looking at it here because you said an island off. It looks like off the coast of Portugal. It looks like there's a Pontina in the mainland as well. So I'm trying to find it on a map.
So the story, just look up Madeira. It's part of Portugal, but what happened was, the king of Portugal sold this island to the Knights Templars because he needed some money to build out a port. And so the Knights Templars purchased the island. They got the deed from the king. It's all sovereign, just like how Monaco is, etc. Mm-hmm. And then that's why it's called a principality, because kings can grant. You can't be a king in a principality, but you can be a prince, and you can still have sovereignty. So these Knights Templars still respected the king. But what happened was the Republic of Portugal sprung up, and they murdered the king and his whole family. They assassinated everybody. And so the Republic of Portugal then claimed all the king's land, except for this island and except for the Savage Islands and some fort in Benin, Africa. So anyways, the Africans kept the fort. They got the Savage Islands back from Spain eventually, but they never went after this island with this old Knights Templar fortress on it. So Prince Renato, who's the acting prince and part of the Knights Templar and everything, is the head of state there. And technically, I'm still the prime minister there, but not a lot is happening with that. But yeah, it's a great story to tell at a party, you know. And I honestly think that Liberland has a much better chance of getting formal recognition with the team that Vit has built and the energy and money that he's got behind him to make it a reality.
Right. And I'm looking at Madeira right now. Is it so land-wise, it looks like it probably is a little bit bigger than Liberland. Is that accurate?
Madeira is bigger than Liberland, but this island where this fort is smaller than Madeira. I'll show it to you sometime. It's basically a part of, if you look at the Bay of Funchal, you'll see the islands in the bay, the old fortresses on them. And it's what you protect that bay, because the Portuguese would sail through there on their way to America. In fact, when America celebrated its independence, they did it toasting wine from Madeira. So little, trivia, if you will.
Nice. Okay. So, and then you're a founding father of Liberland as well. Did that entire process kind of look like, were you there the day that April 13th, 2015 was day one? I'm wondering, where you came into the picture.
Yeah, so I met Vit. I went out there to Serbia. We went to the island. We then basically decided to blockchain out the island. Vit needed cash for that. He wanted cash for buying the houseboat and stuff. So we bought this, not really a house, but a river cruise boat. You've seen it, the Liberty. And so, I bought a suite and that thing so that we could host other Liberlandians who would like to come and visit Liberland. They can stay there instead of at a hotel, etc., and do riverboat tours and maybe make a little bit of money. There's a little landing strip for the airlines that we're in the middle of trying to purchase, and a little dock/port where we can host the boat. It's got a little beach there and a restaurant, so that's another business opportunity. The Serbians are a lot more friendly than the Croatians are.
Right.
And so we're trying to make inroads with the Croatians because this is a great little project, and we could turn Liberland into something like Hong Kong here very, very quickly if the Croatians would just leave us alone. And so, that's where we're currently at with the project, and first country in the world to be completely run on a smart contract with these merits and the blockchain. That kind of it's a very clever way to run a government, if you will. I always tell everybody Liberland's the freest country in the world, and that's one of the reasons why I named my daughter Liberty, is because we're so into the philosophy of liberty and freedom. We were always big Ron Paul supporters. In fact, Ron Paul was there when Liberty was born. So wow. It's a pretty cool relationship we have there, and a lot of libertarian projects we've been working on over the last almost 2 decades now.
Yeah, Ron Paul is definitely someone we want to get on our show as well too. So it's good to know that there's already some relation there. I think I saw him in your Gmail picture too. So he must be like a godfather to Little Liberty, huh? Oh,
definitely. If you Google "Baby Liberty has arrived," Ron Paul, you can watch the video that Lou Radowski made from We Are Change. I'll send you a link in the recording so you can post it if you'd like. But that's Little Liberty, and she's already in the Guinness Book of World Records. She's visited all 50 states, and she did it in 42 days at 43 days old. So she's the youngest human to do that. And thus far, we've now taken her to 31 countries. She's 8 months old, knocked out 31 countries. So I'm going to get her 100 countries in her first year. That's kind of the goal for us. So that's why we're leaving again tomorrow to the Caribbean to knock out some more countries down there and get Little Liberty's passports full of stamps,
Yeah, that's so, I love it. I love hearing stories like that. Where would you say you got the inspiration to, because I know that you were just there recently as well. You were at the North Pole. I don't know if you were with Little Liberty. You made a transaction of some sort from the North Pole. I'm wondering where that inspiration came from and if you've done anything else similar like that here recently.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So I've been taking the Liberland flag with me all over the place. I took it up Mount Rainier, took it up Mount Fuji in Japan. I took it to the South Pole and the North Pole. And I've just been carrying around the flag, and whatever looks like a good picture, I always pull out the flag. And in fact, half of Antarctica still hasn't been claimed. So I actually went down there and claimed a sliver of Antarctica for Liberland. But technically, if we're going to get it recognized, we have to put a weather station down there, or a 40-foot shipping container of some sort with a Liberland flag on it, and say this sliver of Antarctica is ours, which we haven't done yet. But I stood there and I declared to the world with the Liberland flag that this little sliver of Antarctica is officially Liberland, and I stuck the flag in the ice, and there you have it. In the North Pole, it's a little harder to do that because the ice is constantly moving because it's just floating. And the technical ground of the North Pole is about 4,000 feet deep, where the Russians went down with a submarine and actually planted a Russian flag at the bottom of the ocean.
Interesting.
So technically Russia has claimed the North Pole, but it's been fun to just go around with it. It brings a great conversation to discuss the non-aggression principle and the philosophy of liberty, of a voluntarist society where all human interactions are voluntary. You're not allowed to use force, fraud, or coercion to get your way, stuff like that. It brings it right to a kind of a simple understanding of our philosophy, and a lot of people, when broken down simply, start to relate and start to understand what a libertarian really is. And I think a lot of people get confused when they hear the word an anarchist or something. They think fire and Molotov cocktails and flipping cars over and burning cities to the ground and stuff like that. So, trying to unmix a mixed message, if you will. And Liberland is a wonderful door to that, especially since we have more consulates for Liberland than the United States does. Every 600,000 people have now signed up to be citizens of Liberland, and they've put up their homes and apartments and offices around the world to be consulates for Liberland. I mean, imagine the networking that's happening around the world as Liberlandians travel to and fro and visit each other and kind of do the couch surfer thing, if you will. And and it creates this digital society, because everything is going digital anyways. We've got the new digital IDs, kind of like how Estonia's doing it with their digital citizenship or whatever. So yeah, I mean, it's an exciting project to be a part of, and I've sent lots of monies. I got lots of merits, and so now I just minted a Liberland coin that I'm trying to get Vit to agree that he likes it. So we might start selling these silver coins, and of course I run coldstoragecoins.com, where you can take Bitcoin off the internet and put it onto a physical coin or any kind of cryptocurrency. We laser etch the private key into the physical coin, and then we cover it with a hologram with the public key, so you can load the coin with crypto, and it's like a bearer share, if you will. You can hand somebody the coin. You handed them physical crypto. You don't have to go through the internet to do it, if that makes sense. It's when you set up a wallet for Bitcoin, let's say, they tell you print out your private keys onto a piece of paper in case you lose your phone. You can back it up and you can clone your wallet to your iPad or your computer or another phone, so you don't lose all your money if you lose your phone, right? But when you print it out on a piece of paper, that's not fireproof or flood proof, and so people literally do get in floods and fires and they lose their money. So that's why we created cold storage coins to kind of merge the hard money old school guys, the gold and silver bugs, with the new digital economy, the crypto cypherpunks, if you will, and bring them together with a physical gold coin or physical silver coin with Bitcoin on that coin. It's the best of both worlds.
That is without a doubt the coolest thing. I mean, we're recording this on August 9th. So I was going to say the coolest thing I've heard all month. It might be more than the past month. I had no idea about coldstoragecoins.com. That, in my opinion, just sounds like something that could very easily catch on.
Well, we're doing with the merits. So that's coming up here pretty soon, and then you'll be able to actually have your merits on a physical coin, That's amazing.
All right. Thank you for that innovation. And then, Joby, where do you feel like your freedom-focused spirit first came from? Do you think you were just born with it, or is it something that you kind of learned throughout life?
I was born with it. It's in my blood. My family where they were officers in the American Revolution. They've been a part of the DAR and CAR and the Society of Cincinnati, and going all the way up through. My great-grandfather was Secretary of War under Harding and Coolidge, and senators. His son was Secretary of Commerce under Eisenhower, and just like built up America, to be a bastion of freedom. But unfortunately, we've lost our way. We've been infiltrated, and now all 10 planks of communism are law in the United States. I, as well as my ancestors, are pissed off at where our country has gone, which is why we like little projects like Liberland, because it inspires us. I've always been an entrepreneur. I grew up with in a family of entrepreneurs, and listening to Tony Robbins and Brian Tracy and Jim Rohn and all the heroes of the personal mastery, getting into the positive mindset type entrepreneur world. And got started in business when I was 14 years old. I was a millionaire by 19, traveling the world. I went to 100 countries, over by the time I was probably 23 or 24, something like that. And met my wife, decided to take her around the world. We've gone to 167 countries together. And my mission has been to create 1,000 millionaires. My first mission was to create 100 millionaires, which I did already. And so now I want to create 1,000 millionaires. And so teaching other people how to create passive residual income so they can have freedom. They don't have to trade time for money. So the stuff that Robert Kiyosaki teaches in his book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and the Cash Flow Quadrant, and which Rich Dad's Guide to Investing, or Retire Young, Retire Rich. Those books kind of really inspired me and motivated me, and kind of taught me the nuts and bolts of how to become an entrepreneur. Because today, anywhere in the world, you got to buy your freedom. And, if you're stuck in a communist country, but you're a multimillionaire, you're free. If you're in a free country, but you're broke, you're not free. So it all comes down to having the cash. And I know, I don't want to chase dollars because it's fake fiat money and da-da-da. But you got to remember, there's billions of people that don't even know what a dollar is that think it's valuable. And so I understand, sure, it's fake money. It's not real. It springs into existence out of debt. But life is a lot better when you have tens of millions of dollars than if you don't have any. And you're a lot more free because there's lots of people out there that will take it for their goods and services, right? So yes, we're in the battle against the Federal Reserve, and we want to bring back honest weights and measures and get back to a deflationary currency that governments can't just print, making all of our money worth less and less and less, because everybody knows inflation is theft, inflation's a tax, and obviously if you don't want to participate in that system, you got to stop using their money. But a lot of people stop using the dollars and don't use anything else, and now they have no freedom. They can't go anywhere or do anything,
Yeah, preach. I wish I could let you just keep going. but we're
how many more minutes we got?
we're getting ready to wrap it up here. I do have a couple more questions for you to close this one out. The first one is, within the next 3 to 5 years, where do you see yourself personally involved with Liberland? For example, do you see yourself living there in a home? Do you see something being built there, or something digital within the country? Where do you see you and Liberland within the next 3 to 5 years?
I see Liberland getting recognition. I see me playing a role in that. I just became a diplomat through the UN with an IGO called the World Sports Organization, or World Sports Alliance. We got treaties with 37 countries so far, and I'm working on getting a treaty with Liberland through that IGO to get some recognition there. You know how the IGOs work. UN is an IGO, NATO is an IGO, right? The European Union is an IGO, the Olympics is an IGO, and if someone at the Olympics, two athletes fight each other, the host country doesn't have jurisdiction over that. They actually go back to Switzerland. The Olympics has their own court system in Switzerland to handle that dispute, if you will. So these supranational organizations out there that cut treaties with all these deals. What I've been working on is these sustainable development goals, and I think that if I can sell a couple of these waste to energy plants, we call them zero waste plants, I'll have the capital to really put more money behind Liberland to get more recognition. What we can do now, bro, is we're building these plants that turn sludge and sewage and waste and garbage and tires into electricity. So let's say it's a tire. We shred the tires. We throw them in this reactor. It uses electromagnetic heat induction coils that vaporize the tire. Does not burn the tire because we pull a vacuum, so there's no oxygen. So there's no burning, no incineration, no pollution, no CO2. It vaporizes the tire into a syngas and then goes through what's called a Fischer-Tropsch system, which converts that syngas back into a liquid fuel like diesel or jet fuel or gasoline, etc. And so for every tire you throw in this machine, you get a gallon of gas, plus we get the steel, we get the carbon black, and of course the excess heat that the machine produces, we convert into electricity to mine Bitcoin. So the vision is to turn the world's waste into cryptocurrency, and we make millions of dollars every time we sell these machines. And Europe, for instance, has banned landfills. So by the year 2025, no more landfills in Europe. They've set up a $1 trillion fund to basically buy these machines from us to handle all their garbage, et cetera. So my goal is to sell all these machines throughout Europe, make millions and billions of dollars, and then take that money and basically use it to get official recognition with Liberland. And then our passports become more valuable. Our citizenship by investment program will work. We've got a new app that we're releasing that allows our citizens to communicate with each other peer-to-peer without going through servers like how WhatsApp and Telegram and Signal, they all go through servers. Mm-hmm. And so they can be hacked and eavesdropping, et cetera, from the various government agencies out there. Whereas our program, Call.me, which will be like Liberland.call.me, will be the first peer-to-peer communication app that our citizens will be able to use. And that will create some ongoing passive income. You know, the idea would be, let's say 600,000 of our Liberland citizens pay $5 a month to use the platform, use the app. There's $3 million a month coming into Liberland to fund Vet and his whole team to go around the world and constantly be, lobbying these members of parliaments and various governments, et cetera, to get recognition. So things like this need to have supporters. We're not just asking for people to give us money. We want to provide a valuable service or product that people can use, and then basically create cash flow for the country. Instead of having to ask for taxes, we just say, hey, stop using WhatsApp and start using this instead. It's more secure. And voila, now you got a cash flow situation for Liberland. So creative things like that we're looking at and implementing. And who knows, it might not even be 5 years. It might be a year or two down the road that we start getting some real traction in the international community.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you. I mean, that's really what I have to say. Is just thank you for all of the efforts that you just mentioned. It's a real honor to be on the phone with you right now. I didn't even know about 90% of the things that we've discussed so far today. So that's really cool, Joby. What is, if anyone is feeling called to action after hearing you speak today, what's the best way for them to take a step forward? Can they reach out to you? Is there somewhere that you can point them? What does that look like?
Yeah, sure. I mean, they can friend me on Facebook. That's an easy spot to find me, Joby Weeks. Joby Weeks at Gmail. I'm, Joby Weeks at everything, really. They can pass this, audio recording along to their friends and get involved. Go to Liberland.org and go to sign up to become a citizen of our country, our little country, and get yourself a passport and show it off to your friends and talk about the libertarian movement around the world. I mean, freedom is popular. People want freedom, and they don't like having these big non-governmental agencies and organizations and supranational entities trying to usurp their constitutions, et cetera. And so they want, you see it all over the world as these nationalist organizations pop up. Trump was one that's like, screw the UN, and Poland and Hungary, et cetera. They're starting to ban the big banks and all that kind of stuff. So people are starting to wake up with the internet, with all these great documentaries going out that, show people what it's all about, to have self-ownership and to be responsible for yourself. Capitalism, not socialism, stuff like that. So yeah, it's just keep spreading the message any way you can, and get involved with Liberland. Set up a consulate in your area and then invite other Liberlandians to come hang out.
Perfect. All right. Well, Joby, thank you once again for your time. Thank you for the information you shared today. I'm sure we're definitely going to get this one circulating through the community, and hopefully, like you just said, ears that haven't heard this message before, it falls on them, and we keep moving forward.
Perfect. Great. Well, thanks for having me on, bro.
Yep. Guys,
keep up the good work.
Thank you. Guys, this has been episode 39 of the Liberland Show. Today we were joined by Joby Weeks, Global Ambassador of Liberland. I'm your host, Adam J. Carswell. Thank you for tuning in. And actually, before we time out, I should say, not only Global Ambassador, Founding Father, Joby Weeks, thank you for tuning in, and we will catch you in the next episode. Guys, if you enjoy listening to the Liberland Show, be sure to check out my own personal podcast called Dream Chasers. On Dream Chasers, we interview individuals with supernatural amounts of potential based on early success in their careers. Go ahead and do a web search on it. Again, my name is Adam Carswell, Adam J. Carswell. Go ahead, type in Dream Chasers, and it should pop up for you to listen there on any platform, YouTube, Facebook, Spotify, iTunes, etc. Thanks for tuning in to the Liberland Show, and we will catch you in the next episode. Thanks.